Owen Harlan watched his wife's fingers dance across her phone screen, while his 17-year-old son's best friend sat inches away from her on the cabin's worn leather couch. The way Kieran's eyes lingered on Marlene's legs, the way she smiled when she caught him looking. Owen felt something cold settle in his chest, like winter fog rolling off the lake. The October wind rattled the cabin windows as Owen stood in the doorway, grease still under his fingernails from the auto shop he'd closed early for this family weekend. He'd wanted to reconnect with Tyler before his senior year ended, maybe bridge whatever gap had opened between them. Instead, he was watching his wife flirt with an 18-year-old kid. "Dad, you gonna stand there all night?" Tyler looked up from his homework spread across the kitchen table, completely oblivious to what Owen was seeing. "Just checking the weather," Owen lied, stepping inside and closing the door. The cabin had been in his family for 30 years, a simple place with thin walls and thinner pretenses. Tonight, it felt like a trap. Marlene finally looked up from her phone, tucking a strand of blonde hair behind her ear. At 39, she still turned heads in their small Ohio town, still got the appreciative looks that made Owen proud to walk beside her. Now those same looks made his stomach turn. "Storm's supposed to get worse," she said, stretching in a way that made her sweater ride up. Kieran's Adam's apple bobbed as he swallowed hard. Owen had known Kieran since the kid was 10, watched him grow from a scrawny tag-along into the town's golden boy quarterback. 6'2", all-American smile, college scouts calling every week. He was supposed to be like a second son, not this. "Maybe we should head back early," Owen suggested, testing the waters. "Oh, come on, honey." Marlene stood up, her hand briefly touching Kieran's shoulder as she passed. "We just got here. Tyler's got Monday off school anyway." Tyler nodded without looking up. "Coach wants me and Kieran to work on plays this weekend." The irony wasn't lost on Owen. His son defending the very person who was about to destroy their family. Owen busied himself making coffee, his hands steady despite the earthquake happening inside his chest. Through the kitchen window, he could see their reflections in the darkened glass. Marlene now sitting closer to Kieran, their knees almost touching. The kid was saying something that made her laugh, that musical sound that used to make Owen's day. "I'm gonna grab some firewood," Owen announced. Nobody protested. Outside, the October air bit through his flannel shirt. The woodpile was mostly soggy from recent rain, but Owen didn't care. He needed space to think, to figure out if what he was seeing was real or just jealousy playing tricks on his mind. But when he came back inside 10 minutes later, arms full of damp logs, the living room was empty. Tyler was still at the kitchen table, headphones on, lost in his world. Owen could hear voices from the back bedroom, Marlene's room, his and Marlene's room. He set the wood down carefully, the logs barely making a sound. The voices were low, intimate. Marlene's laugh again, but different this time. Breathier. Owen's heart hammered against his ribs as he moved down the narrow hallway. The bedroom door was cracked open just enough. What he saw through that sliver of space would replay in his mind for the rest of his life. Marlene sat on the edge of the bed, Kieran standing between her legs. Her hands were on his chest, his fingers tangled in her hair. They were kissing like teenagers, desperate and careless. "You have to be quiet," Marlene whispered, glancing toward the door. "Tyler can't hear anything with those headphones," Kieran replied, his voice rough with want. Owen's vision went white around the edges. 17 years of marriage, 17 years of working 60-hour weeks to give his family everything they needed, and this was his reward. His wife was seducing his son's best friend in their family cabin. But what happened next made everything worse. Kieran pulled out his phone, propping it against the lamp on the nightstand. The camera was angled perfectly to capture the bed. "What are you doing?" Marlene asked. "Insurance," Kieran grinned. "In case things get complicated." Owen's rage exploded before his brain could catch up. The bedroom door slammed against the wall as he charged through it, his 41-year-old mechanic's strength focused into pure fury. "Get your freaking hands off my wife!" Kieran stumbled backward, nearly falling over the bed. Marlene screamed, clutching at her disheveled sweater. Owen grabbed the kid by his Letterman jacket, lifting him off the ground despite the 4-inch height difference. "Dad, what the hell?" Tyler appeared in the doorway, his face shifting from confusion to horror as he processed the scene. "Your buddy here was just showing me what friendship means," Owen snarled, his grip tightening on Kieran's jacket. "Owen, stop!" Marlene was on her feet now, her face flushed. "It's not what you think." "Really?" Owen shoved Kieran toward the door. "And what exactly is it, Marlene? What am I thinking that's so wrong?" Tyler stood frozen, his world cracking apart in real time. Owen saw his own devastation reflected in his son's eyes and felt his heart break all over again. "You have 10 seconds to get out of my sight," Owen told Kieran, his voice deadly quiet now. "Both of you. Before I do something we'll all regret." "Owen, please," Marlene started. "Get out." The next 20 minutes were chaos. Marlene threw clothes into a bag while Kieran called his parents, both of them acting like victims of Owen's unreasonable jealousy. Tyler sat on the couch, staring at nothing, occasionally shaking his head like he could make it all go away. "This isn't over," Kieran muttered as Owen escorted them to the front door. "You're right," Owen replied. "It's just getting started." Thunder crashed overhead as Kieran and Marlene climbed into her Honda Civic. Owen watched their taillights disappear into the storm, then turned to face his son. Tyler looked like he'd been hit by a truck. "Dad, I didn't know. I swear I didn't know." "I know you didn't." Owen sat beside him on the couch, suddenly feeling every one of his 41 years. "This isn't your fault, son. How long do you think?" "I don't know. Maybe it just started. Maybe it's been going on for months." They sat in silence, listening to the rain hammer the roof. Owen's mind was already working, the same methodical approach he used to diagnose engine problems. First, you identified all the symptoms. Then you traced them back to the source. Finally, you fixed what was broken or replaced what couldn't be saved. "What happens now?" Tyler asked. Owen looked at his son, really looked at him. Tyler had Owen's dark hair and serious eyes, but Marlene's quick smile and easy charm. Or at least he used to. Right now, he just looked lost. "Now, we go home," Owen said, "and we figure out how deep this goes." The drive back to Millbrook took 2 hours through the storm. Tyler dozed fitfully in the passenger seat, while Owen gripped the steering wheel and planned. By the time they pulled into their driveway on Maple Street, he'd made several decisions. First, he was filing for divorce. Second, he was getting custody of Tyler. Third, he was going to make sure everyone in their small town knew exactly what kind of person Marlene really was. Owen had always been patient, methodical. It's what made him good at fixing engines and bad at fighting with his wife. But patience had limits, and Marlene had just found his. Their house looked different when they walked through the front door. The family photos on the mantel seemed like evidence of a crime, the wedding picture an outright lie. Owen noticed things he'd missed before. Marlene's phone always face down, her frequent late nights at the school where she worked as a nurse, her sudden interest in Tyler's football friends. "I'm going to try to sleep," Tyler mumbled, heading upstairs. Owen nodded, though sleep was the last thing on his mind. Instead, he sat at the kitchen table and started making lists. Names, dates, behaviors that hadn't made sense at the time. He'd always trusted Marlene completely, never questioned her stories or checked up on her activities. That was about to change. Monday morning came gray and cold. Tyler left for school without eating breakfast, his usual easy confidence replaced by hollow-eyed anxiety. Owen called his shop and told his assistant manager he'd be late, then made another call. "Jim, it's Owen Harlan. I need to ask you about something." Jim Paulson had been Owen's friend since high school, now worked as a private investigator 2 towns over. They met for coffee at the diner on Route 9, far enough from Millbrook that nobody would see them together. "I need you to look into my wife," Owen said without preamble. Jim's eyebrows rose. "Owen, are you sure about this? Once you open this door..." "The door's already open. I just need to know how long it's been that way." Jim nodded slowly. "What do you want me to find?" "Everything. Phone records, credit card statements, where she goes when she says she's working late. All of it. This is going to cost you. I don't care what it costs." Owen spent the rest of the week in a strange kind of limbo, going through the motions of normal life while waiting for Jim's call. Marlene came home Tuesday night like nothing had happened, spinning a story about helping Kieran through a difficult time and how Owen had completely misunderstood what he'd seen. "You've been under so much stress with the shop," she said, her nurse's voice all sympathy and concern. "Maybe you should talk to someone." Owen listened to her performance with professional detachment, the same way he'd listened to a customer describe engine trouble. She was good, he had to admit. Convincing. If he hadn't seen what he'd seen, he might have believed her. Tyler barely spoke to either of them, eating dinner in silence and disappearing to his room afterward. Owen could see the kid was struggling, caught between loyalty to his mother and the evidence of his own eyes. Thursday afternoon, Jim called. "You need to sit down for this," he said. Owen was already sitting, alone in his office at the back of the auto shop. "Just tell me." "It's bad, Owen, really bad." The phone records showed months of calls and texts between Marlene and Kieran, starting back in June. But that wasn't the worst part. There were also communications with Willis Grady, the janitor at the high school, dating back even further, and 3 different numbers belonging to current members of Tyler's football team. "How many?" Owen asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "At least 4 that I can confirm, maybe more." Owen closed his eyes, feeling the last of his illusions crumble. "The pregnancy test I found in her purse last week. She said it was for a friend." "Owen, just say it." "The test was positive, but according to the phone records, you and Marlene haven't been intimate in over 3 months. She's been texting jokes about it to Kieran." The phone slipped from Owen's numb fingers. When he picked it up, Jim was still talking. "There's video, Owen. Security footage from the school. Marlene and the janitor in a supply closet. A student hacked the system and copied it before reporting the break-in. That's how I got it." Owen hung up without another word. He sat in his office chair, staring at the wall covered with Tyler's football photos and academic awards, and felt something fundamental shift inside his chest. The patient, trusting husband died in that moment, replaced by something harder and infinitely more dangerous. That evening, Owen called a family meeting. Tyler slouched on the living room couch while Marlene perched on the edge of her chair, radiating nervous energy. "I've been thinking about what happened at the cabin," Owen began carefully, "and I realize we need professional help." Marlene's relief was visible. "Oh, honey, I'm so glad you're being reasonable about this. We can get through anything together." "Absolutely. In fact, I've already made an appointment with a counselor for tomorrow afternoon. Dr. Martinez, downtown." It was a lie, but Owen needed one more day to prepare. Marlene eagerly agreed, probably thinking she could manipulate a therapist the same way she'd manipulated everyone else. Tyler just nodded, clearly hoping someone could fix what felt unfixable. That night, Owen lay awake listening to Marlene sleep beside him, her breathing deep and untroubled. He thought about the 17 years they'd been married, searching for signs he'd missed. Had she always been this person, or had she become someone else when he wasn't looking? It didn't matter now. What mattered was protecting Tyler and making sure Marlene faced consequences for what she'd done. Friday morning, Owen made his move. Instead of going to work, he drove to the office of Sarah Chen, the best divorce attorney in 3 counties. Sarah had handled his friend Mike's ugly divorce 2 years ago, and Mike had warned Owen she was expensive but ruthless. "I need to file for divorce," Owen told her, "and I need full custody of my son." Sarah looked over the evidence Jim had compiled. Phone records, photos, video timestamps. Her expression grew grimmer with each page. "Mr. Harlan, this is extensive. Your wife has been having relationships with multiple minors. This isn't just adultery. It's potentially criminal." "What does that mean for my case?" "It means you're going to get everything you're asking for, and your wife is going to need a criminal defense attorney more than a divorce lawyer." Owen felt a cold satisfaction settle in his bones. "How long?" "I can file today. With evidence this damning, she won't have much room to fight. The custody hearing will be a formality." "Do it." Owen left Sarah's office feeling lighter than he had in months. The hardest part was over. Now came the reckoning. He spent the afternoon at the shop, losing himself in the familiar rhythm of diagnosing and repairing. Engines made sense. You could trust them to behave according to logical principles. When something went wrong, there was always a reason and usually a fix. People were messier. At 5 o'clock, Owen got a call from Tyler's school. Principal Lane's voice was tight with barely controlled panic. "Mr. Harlan, I need you to come to the school immediately. There's been an incident involving your son." Owen was shocked. "What kind of incident?" "Just please come as quickly as you can." Owen broke several traffic laws getting to Millbrook High. He found Tyler in the principal's office, his right eye swollen shut and his knuckles scraped raw. Across from him sat Milo Dane and Travis Beck, 2 of Kieran's football teammates, both looking significantly worse than Tyler. "What happened?" Owen demanded. Principal Lane, a tired-looking man in his 50s, rubbed his temples. "There was a fight in the locker room after practice. Apparently some inappropriate video was being passed around and things escalated." "What video?" Tyler spoke for the first time, his voice hollow. "The one Kieran took, of you and Mom." Owen's vision went red around the edges. "He shared it?" "Not just him," Principal Lane said quietly. "It's been circulating among the football team for days. When Tyler tried to delete it from Milo's phone, things got physical." Owen looked at his son, really looked at him. Tyler's humiliation was written across his battered face, the kind of shame that would follow him through the halls of this school for the rest of the year. "Did my son start the fight?" Owen asked. "Well, technically. Did he throw the first punch?" Principal Lane shifted uncomfortably. "Mr. Dane claims Tyler attacked him when he wouldn't hand over his phone. So my son was trying to protect his family's privacy, and these two decided to gang up on him." Mr. Harlan, it's not that simple. "It's exactly that simple." Owen stood up, his chair scraping against the floor. "My son is the victim here, and if you can't see that, maybe you need to reconsider your position." Tyler looked up at his father with something like surprise. Owen had always been the peacemaker, the one who smoothed things over and avoided confrontation. Not anymore. "I want copies of any security footage from the locker room," Owen continued. "And I want a written guarantee that my son won't face any disciplinary action for defending himself." "Mr. Harlan, I understand you're upset, but do you have children, Principal Lane?" "Yes, I have a daughter." "How would you feel if someone was passing around a video of her in a compromising situation and she got punished for trying to stop it?" Principal Lane's face went pale. I see your point." Owen drove Tyler home in silence, both of them lost in their own thoughts. It wasn't until they were sitting in their driveway that Tyler finally spoke. "Dad, I'm sorry." "For what?" "For not knowing, for being friends with Kieran, for bringing him around Mom." Owen felt his heart break all over again. "Tyler, listen to me. None of this is your fault. Not one bit of it. Your mother made her choices, and Kieran made his. You're the only innocent person in this whole mess." Tyler nodded, but Owen could see he didn't believe it yet. That would take time. Marlene was waiting for them when they walked through the front door, her face a mask of concern. "Oh my God, Tyler, what happened to your face?" "Ask your boyfriend," Tyler muttered, pushing past her toward the stairs. "Owen, what is he talking about?" Owen looked at his wife, this woman he'd loved for nearly 2 decades, and felt nothing but disgust. "Kieran shared the video he took at the cabin. Tyler got into a fight trying to protect what's left of our family's reputation." Marlene's face went white. "What video? Just don't." Owen moved past her into the kitchen, needing distance before he said something he'd regret. "Your performance is getting old, Marlene." She followed him, her voice rising to the pitch she used when she felt cornered. "I don't know what you think you saw, but I saw you freaking our son's best friend while he filmed it for insurance. Those were your words, not mine." Marlene's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. For the first time since Owen had known her, she was completely speechless. "Oh, and Marlene, I filed for divorce today. You'll be served papers on Monday." The sound she made wasn't quite a scream, more like the noise a wounded animal makes when it realizes it's trapped. Owen walked past her toward the garage where he could work on his truck and think about what came next. Behind him, he heard Marlene collapse into a kitchen chair and start to cry. Once upon a time, that sound would have broken his heart and sent him running to comfort her. Now, it just sounded like justice. The weekend passed in a blur of tense silence and hushed phone calls. Marlene spent most of Saturday locked in their bedroom, emerging only to make frantic calls to people Owen couldn't identify. Tyler holed up in his room, supposedly doing homework, but mostly just staring at his phone with an expression of barely controlled rage. Sunday evening, Owen was replacing the brake pads on a customer's car when Kieran walked into his shop. The kid looked terrible, hollow-eyed and gaunt, like he hadn't slept in days. His usual cocky confidence was gone, replaced by something desperate and dangerous. "Mr. Harlan, can we talk?" Owen didn't look up from his work. "Shop's closed. Please, just 5 minutes." Owen straightened slowly, wiping his hands on a rag. At 6'2", Kieran still had 4 inches on him, but Owen had spent 23 years swinging heavy tools and lifting engine blocks. The kid's height advantage meant nothing. "You've got balls showing up here," Owen said quietly. "Look, I know you're pissed, but you don't understand." "I understand perfectly. You seduced my wife, filmed it happening, then shared the video with your buddies when things got complicated. What exactly am I missing?" Kieran's face flushed red. "She came on to me, okay? All summer she was texting me, finding excuses to be alone with me. I didn't ask for any of this." "But you didn't say no. I'm 18 years old. What teenage guy is going to turn down—" Kieran caught himself, but it was too late. "Turn down what? A married woman old enough to be your mother? Tyler's mother? That's not— I mean—" Owen set down his wrench and took a step closer. "You know what the age of consent is in Ohio, Kieran?" The kid's face went from red to pale. 16. That's right. And you know what the age of consent is for a school employee having relations with a student? Kieran's mouth went dry. I'm not a student anymore. I graduated. You're still on the football team. Still using school facilities. Still technically under the supervision of school employees. Owen smiled, but it was the kind of smile that made smart people nervous. My lawyer thinks that's close enough to matter. You can't prove anything. Owen pulled out his phone and showed Kieran a screenshot of text messages between Kieran and Marlene that were explicit enough to make a grown man blush. Your insurance plan had a flaw, kid. You kept evidence of your own crimes. Kieran's legs seemed to give out. He slumped against Owen's workbench, suddenly looking much younger than 18. What do you want? I want you to stay away from my family. I want you to delete every photo and video you have. And I want you to make sure none of your friends ever mention this to Tyler again. And if I do all that, then maybe my lawyer doesn't send copies of these messages to the district attorney. Kieran nodded frantically. Okay, yes, whatever you want. Good, now get out of my shop. Owen watched the kid stumble toward the door, then called after him. Kieran? The boy turned, hope flickering in his eyes. Your full ride to Ohio State? The one that depends on you staying out of trouble? Owen's smile turned predatory. I'd start looking at community colleges if I were you. Monday morning brought the divorce papers and a visit from Child Protective Services. Marlene answered the door in her bathrobe, her face puffy from crying, and found herself face-to-face with a serious-looking woman in a business suit. Mrs. Harlan, I'm Janet Morrison from CPS. We need to discuss some allegations that have been brought to our attention. Owen watched from the kitchen as Marlene's world began to crumble in earnest. The CPS investigation was triggered by the video evidence Jim had uncovered. Footage of Marlene with Willis Grady in a supply closet at the high school where she worked. Since the school served minors and Marlene was in a position of authority, her behavior constituted a serious breach of professional conduct. Within a week, Marlene was suspended from her job pending a full investigation. The local newspaper picked up the story, running a carefully worded article about improper conduct by school personnel that managed to convey the sordid details without naming names. But in a town the size of Millbrook, everyone knew exactly who they were talking about. Owen found himself receiving awkward condolences from neighbors and customers, people who clearly wanted details but were too polite to ask directly. He dealt with each encounter the same way, a brief nod and a change of subject. Tyler was having a harder time. The video might have been contained within the football team, but rumors had a way of spreading. Kids who'd never spoken to Tyler before suddenly knew intimate details about his family's private business. Maybe I should switch schools, Tyler suggested one evening over dinner. No, Owen said firmly. We're not running away. This isn't your shame to carry. It doesn't feel that way. Owen understood. Guilt by association was real, especially in high school. But Tyler needed to learn that other people's actions couldn't define him unless he let them. You hold your head up, Owen told his son. You've got nothing to be ashamed of. 2 weeks after filing for divorce, Owen got a call from Sarah Chen with an update. Marlene wants to negotiate, Sarah said. She's willing to agree to joint custody in exchange for a smaller settlement. No. Owen, you might want to consider no joint custody, not after what she's done. Tyler's been through enough. What if she fights it? Owen thought about the evidence they had. Not just the adultery, but the relationships with minors, the pregnancy that couldn't be his, the years of deception and manipulation. Let her fight. We've got everything we need to bury her. Marlene's attorney must have given her similar advice because 3 days later she agreed to Owen's terms. Full custody to Owen, the house, the cars, and most of their savings. In exchange, Owen agreed not to pursue criminal charges for her relationships with students. It should have felt like victory. Instead, Owen just felt empty. The final confrontation came on a Thursday evening in November, 2 months after the cabin trip that had destroyed their family. Owen was closing up the shop when he heard shouting from the parking lot. Tyler's voice raised in anger, followed by Kieran's. Owen grabbed a tire iron and headed outside. He found them facing off next to Tyler's truck, both boys red-faced and tense. Tyler had grown in the past 2 months, not just physically, but emotionally. The scared, confused kid from the cabin had been replaced by someone harder and more focused. Told you to stay away from me, Tyler was saying. I just wanted to apologize, Kieran replied, but his tone suggested something less noble. Your dad ruined my life over nothing. Nothing? Tyler's voice cracked with rage. You drilled my mother and filmed it. Owen started forward, but something made him stop. Tyler needed to handle this himself. She wanted it, Kieran said, his desperation making him cruel. She begged for it. You should have heard the things she said. Tyler's fist caught Kieran in the mouth before the bigger boy could finish the sentence. Kieran stumbled backward, then charged forward with a roar of rage. The fight was brief and vicious. Kieran had size and reach, but Tyler had months of pent-up fury and his father's mechanical precision. When it was over, Kieran was on the ground, his nose clearly broken, while Tyler stood over him with scraped knuckles and cold eyes. If I see you near my family again, Tyler said quietly, I'll end you. Owen believed him. The police came, called by someone who'd heard the shouting. But the security camera at Owen's shop told the story clearly. Kieran had approached Tyler aggressively, thrown the first punch after Tyler tried to walk away, and gotten exactly what he deserved. Kieran's parents threatened to sue, but their lawyer took one look at the evidence of their son's relationship with Marlene and advised them to let it go. Kieran's college scholarship was already gone. A criminal record would make his future even bleaker. 3 weeks later, Marlene moved out of the house on Maple Street. Owen helped her load her belongings into a U-Haul truck, more out of a desire to make sure she was really leaving than any lingering affection. She'd found a small apartment across town, near the trailer park where she'd grown up. The irony wasn't lost on either of them. This isn't how I wanted things to end, she said as she carried the last box to the truck. Owen looked at this woman he'd loved for 17 years and felt nothing but tired disappointment. How did you want them to end, Marlene? I don't know, differently. You made your choices, all of them. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. I know you'll never forgive me. You're right. Owen watched her drive away, then went inside to start the long process of rebuilding his life. Tyler was upstairs doing homework, the sound of his music drifting through the ceiling. The house felt different without Marlene. Smaller, but somehow cleaner, like a weight had been lifted. Over the following months, Owen learned to be a single father. He cooked dinner every night, helped with homework he barely understood, and attended every one of Tyler's basketball games after football season ended. Tyler had quit the football team after the fight with Kieran, claiming he'd lost interest in the sport. Owen suspected it had more to do with not wanting to be around his former teammates, but he didn't push. Tyler was dealing with the aftermath of his mother's betrayal in his own way. Spring brought news that Marlene was dating someone new, a divorced man she'd met at a support group for people going through difficult life transitions. Owen heard about it from Tyler, who'd gotten the information from a classmate whose mother worked at the same medical clinic. Does it bother you? Owen asked his son. Tyler considered the question seriously. At 18 now, he'd developed his father's habit of thinking before speaking. No, he said finally. I feel sorry for the guy, but it's not my problem anymore. Owen felt a fierce pride in his son's resilience. Tyler had been through hell and come out stronger for it. The divorce was finalized in May, just before Tyler's graduation. Owen sat in the auditorium watching his son accept his diploma, feeling a mixture of accomplishment and melancholy. Tyler had been accepted to Ohio State with partial academic scholarships. Not the full ride Kieran might have gotten, but enough to make college affordable. Marlene was there too, sitting 3 rows behind Owen with her new boyfriend. She'd tried to make eye contact when she arrived, but Owen had ignored her completely. They had nothing left to say to each other. After the ceremony, Tyler found Owen in the parking lot. Ready to go home? Tyler asked. Owen looked at his son. Tall, confident, undamaged despite everything he'd been through, and felt something like peace. Yeah, he said. Let's go home. But home felt different now. The house on Maple Street held too many memories, too many ghosts. Owen had been thinking about selling, maybe buying something smaller across town. Tyler would be leaving for college in 3 months anyway. That evening, as they sat on the front porch sharing a beer, Tyler's first legal one, though Owen suspected it wasn't his first overall, Owen broached the subject. I've been thinking about moving, he said. Tyler nodded. Probably a good idea. Fresh start and all that? What about you? Any regrets about staying in Millbrook? Tyler was quiet for a long moment, watching cars pass on Maple Street. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if we'd never gone to that cabin, if you'd never seen what you saw. Owen had wondered the same thing many times. Would Marlene have continued her affairs? Would she have left him eventually for someone younger? Would Tyler have grown up never knowing what his mother really was? Do you wish I hadn't seen it? Owen asked. No, Tyler said without hesitation. Better to know the truth, even when it hurts. Owen couldn't argue with that logic. 2 weeks later, Owen put the house on the market. It sold within a month to a young couple with a baby, people who could fill it with hope instead of disappointment. Owen used the proceeds to buy a smaller place near his shop, a ranch-style house with a 2-car garage and no memories. Tyler helped him move, the two of them working together with the easy efficiency they'd developed over the past year. They'd become a team, bonded by shared adversity in a way that felt unbreakable. On Tyler's last night before leaving for college, they sat in Owen's new kitchen sharing Chinese takeout and talking about everything except what was really on their minds. "You going to be okay?" Tyler asked finally. Owen smiled. "I'll be fine. Worried about me? A little. You've been taking care of me for so long, I'm not sure you remember how to take care of yourself." It was an astute observation. Owen had thrown himself into being a single father with the same intensity he brought to everything else, leaving little time for his own needs or wants. "I'll figure it out," Owen said. "What about you?" "I'm ready. More than ready." Owen believed him. Tyler had grown up fast over the past year, forced to confront ugly realities that most kids his age never had to face. But he'd handled it all with a maturity that impressed everyone who knew him. The next morning, Owen drove Tyler to Columbus and helped him move into his dorm room. Tyler's roommate was a farm kid from southern Ohio who seemed nice enough, though Owen could tell Tyler was reserving judgment. "Call me if you need anything," Owen said as they stood in the parking lot saying goodbye. "I will. But Dad, I'm going to be fine. We both are." Tyler hugged him then, something he hadn't done regularly since he was 12. Owen held on maybe a little too long, remembering the scared 17-year-old who'd watched his world fall apart and proud of the confident young man he'd become. The drive back to Millbrook gave Owen time to think about what came next. For the first time in 18 years, he was truly alone. No wife, no son, just himself, and whatever future he chose to build. It should have been terrifying. Instead, it felt like freedom. Owen threw himself into work with renewed energy, expanding his shop and taking on more complex projects. He hired 2 additional mechanics and started Special,